Calling the Joint Committee on Ways and Means and Transportation to order. This afternoon, we'll hear from the Department of Transportation, Airports, Harbors, and Highways, and the administration to discuss their supplemental budget requests. So good afternoon.
You want me to begin, Chair?
Yes, yeah, please begin.
Chair De La Cruz, Vice Chair Kit Agaran of Ways and Means, and Chair Lee and Vice Chair Inoue of Transportation, and honorable members of both committees. Good afternoon, Happy New Year, and thank you for the opportunity to present the DOT supplemental budget request. We strongly support the executive budget, and we respectfully request for your support to fully fund DOT's budget. I'm pleased to present that our transportation system never shut down during this pandemic. Each of our division work hard to prepare for the worst and be resilient at all times. This is a testament to the work of the department and the commitment of everyone, particularly to the professionals, workers, and operators at the airports, harbors, and highways. As requested, my discussion will focus on the highlights of additional fiscal year 23 supplemental budget requests, and specific detailed requests will be addressed by the specific deputies in our divisions. With me are my 4 deputies, Patrick McCain, Deputy Director of Admin, Ras Higashi, Deputy Director of Airports, Eduardo Manglalan, Deputy Director of Harbors, Ed Snippen, Deputy Director of Highways, and various managers and staff in our division who are also on this Zoom briefing. The department's 3 divisions, airports, harbors, and highways, are vital to the state's economic prosperity and quality of life. For the O&M for fiscal year 23 supplemental budget, we're requesting for the whole department $41.3 million, airports 18.8 million, 0 for harbors, 21.99 million for highways, and $500,000 for admin. For the overall, DOT is requesting for CIP $904 million for the whole DOT. Airports is $312.2 million. Harbors 0, no additional requests. Highways $592.5 million. I'm proud of the tireless work being done by all of our DOT's employees who are serving the state each and every day. But I want to highlight the banner year that Airports Division had last year. In August 2021, the Airports Division opened the Mauka extension at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. In October 2021, the Federal Inspection Services Building was dedicated at Ellison Onizuka Kona International Airport at Keahole. Finally, in December 2021, the consolidated rental car facility opened at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. With the accomplishments and acclaim, one might think that the Airports Division would let it go to their heads, at least a little bit.
Okay, we'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Not the case though, as they also recently completed all pedestrian bridges at H&L, and in the process of completing the phase 1 renovation of the restrooms at H&L. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, members' questions. Questions first. Who's ready?
All right, I'll jump in. Thank you very much, Director and deputies. We really appreciate everything you guys are doing, especially with all the new projects that have just been completed and everything else that's been going on. Want to dive in just a couple things real quick. For airports, first to start. And congrats again on the rental car facility being up and operational. I think we've heard a lot of good things from the community. There are some of the rental car companies who are starting to bring in electric vehicles. Obviously, there's going to need to be charging capacity there. Are there, is there a potential or federal dollars or what have you for addressing some of that capacity as some of those cars, at least as some of the rental car companies are slated to show up this year? And how can we install that capacity at that new facility?
Chair,
Good
does
afternoon, Chair, and co-chairs and everyone else on the committee. This is Ross Higashi, and just want to let you guys know that as far as rental cars are concerned, that falls under the CFC, Consolidated Rental Car Fee Collection. So as far as infrastructure is concerned, that is where it would have to be paid out from. We do have a company, Hertz, that is planning to bring in some electric vehicles to the airport system here at Honolulu and Kahului. However, it's based on an allocation of space that they have and the electrical power that is being provided there. So they will be installing their own Tesla batteries along with utilizing whatever power that we can offer them today to charge up those stations as well. They're allocating that all across the nation as well. They did not put that into the design when we built the facility, but that's something that we would have to add to our infrastructure. It wouldn't be cosmetically pretty because you're going to have to put conduits all over the place to get the power to these charging stations.
Is that something that, at least as far as the Energy Office and some of the other state agencies that have other lines of that federal dollars, we can coordinate with and draw some of that money down for that kind of project?
Yes, State Department of Energy would work collaboratively with them.
All right, thank you. And then just one follow up.
If I may.
Oh, please.
Sorry about that. For us, we also have carbon reduction program and protect funding. Once the guidelines are set by federal highways and the appropriations are put out at the end of February, those funds could potentially be available to assist Ross in that action as well.
Thanks very much. And then just secondly for airports, thank you, Chair. Obviously with COVID and everything else, we've seen some of the modifications that have had to have been done and some of the lines and other things that have been challenges to overcome. Some of the other stuff going forward, I know that has been an issue that folks have been focused on, security checkpoints and dealing with some of that reconfiguration, and certainly baggage check-in and some of those key nodes where from just the public's perspective, coming through the airport tends to be bottlenecks and tends to be kind of a hassle. As far as the federal dollars are concerned, which tend to be more, I think, flexible and unconstrained than usual, is there opportunity there to actually use some of that to try and address some of these things that we haven't got to yet?
Yeah, so the infrastructure grant needs to be used for common use type of areas. So dependent on where the locations of these improvements would be, needs to be defined. But yes, we can use it for certain things that you just mentioned. I just want to let you know that our plans are to use it for less glamour type projects like runways and taxiways. But we can issue more bonds and financing to accommodate these improvements. And again, one more thing is that these projects also need to run through our lease agreement, which is the airlines. So anytime we have a project that we want to do, we need to run that through the airlines committee and get their approval for that project to move forward. And that's when we would then ask for an appropriation.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Senator Misalucha.
So Ross, I just wanted to kick the tires a little bit on your figure. So you mentioned in your report that total operating revenues declined. So in 2019, you had 441 million. In 2020, you had 383. And then in 2021, you had 283 million. But then down the line in the report, you talked about being confident in generating revenues. So where do you draw that confidence from? Because I know you mentioned about the airline agreements. Doesn't the airline agreements based on traffic, and with COVID as it is right now, how have we structured those agreements in such a way that notwithstanding the traffic, we could still earn revenues?
Okay, so one way with that we alleviated the downturn right now is with the CARES Act, the CRISA grant, and also the ARPA grant that we are still going to be using in 22 and 23. But how we feel confident is because of the fact that we have a residual system. Of course, if it's materially huge where the airlines cannot pay, that would be a problem. But because of the grants that we've received, the stimulus grants, what we will be doing is it's a residual system. If there is a shortfall under that system, the airlines are on the hook to pay the difference. So that's the assurance that we have. We also have reserves to help us out if in need because of a downturn in the economy. Hopefully, though, we'll get past this variance and then traffic will come back. In the months of July and August, we did see a huge return of traffic, somewhere near 80%. And so we are confident that once the variant is diminished, that we will see traffic coming back again. And traffic dictates landing fees and hold room charges and terminal charges as well. So the more traffic, the better for us. So again, it's all determinant. It's all based on the fact that we need to see the traveling public come back. So that's the forecast that we see from a lot of our economists in the near future.
So that stimulus monies from the feds, until when do we have that?
That grant is good. The ARPA grant is good for 4 years. But the way we're structuring what we want to do is we want to kind of spread the grant out as far as we can to keep rates stable. The airlines do not want to see a dramatic increase in rates, nor do we want to drop it too low either. So we're trying to utilize that grant efficiently based on our forecasted traffic. And based on what we see right now, if we can, at least have 65% of the traveling public come back where we're at compared to 2019, we should be able to utilize that ARPA grant, and hopefully, again, the variant, diminishes away so that traffic returns to normal.
Okay, I see where you're coming from now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Senator Milwaukee, I'll just go back and forth.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to follow up with hi Ross, with Mr. Higashi. You folks had been working on procurement and the business engineering, re-engineering of airports. I don't know if it's all of DOT, but what is the status of it? I know that you folks finished training and you were supposed to come up with a report and how you're going to implement it so we can learn your successes or be able to use it for the whole state. So what is the status of your re-engineering process?
Yeah, good question. So we were moving on it. For me, we were waiting for SPO to get back to us and give us direction. So I'm not sure exactly where it left off because of the fact that we were waiting for the direction from SPO and trying to see how we could streamline via a pilot program for the state of Hawaii. So I'm waiting for them to get back to me. I think they got somehow hampered by the virus or whatnot in terms of their I guess, focus on that pilot program.
So, but you folks where are you in the timeline? So was the virus, that was 2020. So were you in process or where is it in waiting? You're going to wait for SPO, but I
did reach out to them, to see if we could kickstart it again. I would say we're probably like maybe 30-40% through.
Okay, thank you. Chair, I just want to ask highways too, where they are.
Wait, why don't we take all airports first, and then we'll go to.
Right. Okay.
Airports.
So yeah, if we can keep getting a status report from you, Ross, and where it is with SPO, because we are looking at, as you know, the Special Procurement Committee, the Senate met this summer. So we are looking at ways and streamlining the procurement process, making it more consistent. So really are interested in what you folks are doing. So if you can give us a status report, check with SBO and let us know.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
no problem.
Thank you, Chair.
Senator DeQuoit, followed by Senator Inouye.
Thank you, Chair. So Ross, I wanted to give an update from you folks off of the Maui airport and the situation that we've been dealing with deer on our runways and making sure the safety of our incoming passengers, those outgoing passengers, the fencing and stuff, what's happening.
Yeah, so our airport district manager, Marvin Moniz, has played a critical role in this. We were able to, under emergency procurement, we buttoned up a fence that we believe 3 deers were able to squeeze through. We caught them, took them back out. But the bottom line is that we cannot jeopardize the safety of our traveling public. And what we've been talking about is that we don't even want one. And we want to prevent this from happening before it happens. And a lot of times what happens is it takes an event. I don't want to go there, but like an airline issue with an aircraft and whatnot, and again, human beings and so forth. So before it happens, we got to do something. So what we've done was we've buttoned up a fence, a wooden fence out there. And the plan is also to build a new fence around the perimeter of that airport. That's going to cost us a lot of money. We're looking at about $12 million. I'm not sure if that would be a priority project for the airlines at this time. But again, there's so much deer around that airport. We got to do something about the population. That's first and foremost. So we can button up, we can do all of this, but putting up a fence is not going to happen overnight. So we got to do something about the herds of deer that's out near the airport. And they're coming in because there's a lot of vegetation in that area. And they're looking for water as well.
So Ross, I know that I've spoken with Marvin, and Marvin has been doing whatever he can to button it up. You know, the constraints of supplies coming in, I know it's hurt us, and the federal requirements. You know, last check, the $12 million on the perimeter was good, but now what's the status of FAA? Are they requiring the pushback of 40 more feet, or I'm sure that amount will change? I mean, what's the numbers?
Yeah, the ROFA, or the runway area protection area, that's an issue that was just brought up recently. So that being said, if you move back 40 feet, this fence is going to cost a little bit more, but that's something that we are still talking with FAA to find out how they came up with this 40 feet after so many decades that only now they find out that they're in the runway protection area or safety area. So again, that 40 feet, I don't know how they came up with that, but it just came up this past week. So we are in communication with the FAA.
Ross, in the meantime, when we had to deal with what was on the runway, in this case, Marvin guys at 2 a.m, you guys were required by FAA to do certain things to the most eastern side of that fence. How you got the funds to button up that area?
We use the emergency procurement.
Did we deplete those funds for that special funds that you had? Did we deplete those funds because we then had to fly some stuff in and wait for supplies to arrive at the Kaului airport?
I'm not sure exactly how much we had, but I did a estimated procurement order for 300,000.
Were you required to fund the federal U.S. wildlife to get rid of that deer on the runway? And how much of a role did DLNR play to make sure that we protected the safety of that airport, since I don't expect you to be killing deer, or at least managing it, at least not yet?
Yeah, we haven't had much of a role from DLNR or even from U.S. Fish and Wildlife either, or USDA, I should say.
Is that part of your job to fund them too, or?
Yeah, we do fund USDA though.
Okay. Yeah, well, so just so you know, when DLNR was asked that question, their job was not to protect that portion, but to protect the forest from access deer's natural habitat, which I find kind of ironic, and let the deer flow through you guys and the rest of the town. Okay, but thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Senator Inouye.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ross. And I'd like at this time to thank all of you in the divisions, but also to your staff at the airports. You know, this administration for the first time within 7 years had taken over the project from two governors prior with doing nothing. So congratulations. And I think it was a very challenging one for either the CONRAC or even the Malca Concourse working along the construction with rail as well. So congratulations, and we thank all you guys for pushing all those projects through. Having said that, the question I have is, we're talking about the going forward, I guess, new areas to consider. However, have there been discussions with regards to sea level rise and the reef runway? I haven't, we haven't talked about that. And if you could use the ARPA funds to whatever mitigation that we need to do. But, sea level rise is going to affect the reef runway. And as one of our colleagues who travel every week flying in and out of the airport, oftentimes I already see some rise with regards to closer to your border. And so it was just something that I think needs to continue discussions on, because aside from Waikiki, you're the next one that, and of course, the northern side of Oahu. So just my input to see what's coming out with discussions with regards to sea level rise that would affect the reef runway.
So we are part of the planning stages of sea level rise. I mean, talking to other airports, I can tell you right now that what's going to happen, and let me be blunt, is you're going to need a sea wall. I mean, almost every airport throughout the nation is located near an ocean. So again, with sea level rise, that's probably the only remedy. I mean, it's going to cost us way more money to have to move an airport to higher ground. So that's something that we have to contend with. How we contend with that, I still believe that because you're next to the ocean or near the ocean, that's what you're going to need, a seawall.
Yeah, so that also, question 2 is, it also would impact all those businesses along Lagoon Drive as well. And I know you already had some plans and some improvements, I think, happening with the business side on Lagoon Drive.
Yeah, I mean, they're located further in and, not on the outskirts of the airport, but yes, it is a concern. Okay.
All right. Just to catch up. Thank you. Thanks a lot for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Senator Keith Agaran.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. I apologize, but I've limited broadband on Maui for this, so that's why I'm not using my video. But my question has to do with the management of the parking lots at different airports. I assume that they're all under contract to a private operator. And I'm wondering how security is handled, since I think I read a couple of weeks ago that there was a reporter from Civil Beach who parked his Prius at Honolulu airport and then came home, after the long weekend and found that someone had stolen his catalytic converter. And my question is really, has there been a lot of reports of thefts of some kind or break-ins in the vehicles, and how is that handled by airports or by its contractor?
So any type of issue that you just spoke about, which we spoke about earlier, is handled by both the sheriffs and our security company. Is called Allied Services, Universal Services. Since that occurrence, we've always had vigilance on having our security patrols, whether on bike, on car, on segways throughout the airport. So we noticed that there hasn't been as many, and we did pick up or enforce more during the holiday season, knowing that there was more cars in the parking lot. But we also have plainclothes officers out there that are looking for that kind of, somebody trying to burglarize or break into a car. So I believe that because of the step up of enforcement, the amount of break-ins has diminished, or even with the catalytic converters.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
But Ross, how long were the cameras in the parking lot out? Because my understanding is that the cameras weren't functioning for quite some time.
That is true. It was not functioning for quite some time, but we did rectify that issue, and the cameras are all operable.
Yeah, but quite some time is how long?
I don't know, several years.
Yeah, I thought it was 7 years.
Yeah.
So why was it not a priority to make sure the cameras were fixed? Why wait 7 years?
That's a good question. I did get on the case of my engineers to get that rectified.
And how long were you Deputy Director of Airports?
I did ask them to fix that for many years.
Senator Kim.
Thank you. I have a number of questions. Since we're talking on the security, I couldn't find the security contract on the list of contracts that was given. Are they not on this?
I'm not sure which one you're looking at. You might be looking at a maintenance contract list.
What table is it?
I'm looking at Department of Transportation Airports Division active contracts as of December 1, table 14.
The WAM tables you guys, or the budget tables you guys filled out for the money committees.
Yeah, okay, so what's your question?
The question is, I couldn't find your security contract on these contracts. Are they not active?
It should be under Allied Universal Services.
I looked under Allied. I did see one Allied.
You're not going to see Securitas anymore.
Yes, I realize that. It is under Allied. Okay, so speaking of that, and going back to what Senator Agaran had to say, I also noticed that I hardly see any TCOs at the curbs anymore. It used to be 2 to 3 at each station. And I'm also getting complaints about the lack of patrol, lack of security at the airport, car break-ins, homeless at the baggage claim areas. So what's happening with this Allied contract?
I believe they're out there. I'm not sure exactly when that occurred, as far as no security out on the curb. They're supposed to be out there under contract.
Okay, because I, traveled quite a bit this last 4 months of the year, and then I've had to go to the airport and pick up, and I noticed a big absent, and that's one of the concerns that was also raised to me. So this new contractor came on, what, June 29th, June 30th?
Somewhere around, June 30th.
So how many employees do they have?
I'm not exactly sure how many they have. I think it's somewhere about 1,200, but I will double check with them to find out why they don't have, if you're noticing no one out on the curb, because it's part of the contract, and I'll reach out to my security management team.
Okay, so who oversees this contract?
It's my manager, Alex Tamoria, and here in Honolulu, it would be Craig Fujihara.
Okay, so this contract was bid out, and the bid came in $20 million less than the existing bidder. And then I'm hearing from employees that they're not getting their checks on time, they're late. Some took up pay cuts. One person worked 3 to 4 weeks without getting a check. And that Allied being sued right now by the union because they're not paying what the previous contractor paid the employees. Is that things that you folks have been getting?
I can check in with my people. I haven't been informed of any of that. That would be between the company and the employee, but that's good information to know.
Okay, yes, and I want to know the number of people that they actually have manning the posts and how many employees they have. Now, did Ally come in and ask for more money?
No, they cannot ask for more money. It's based on the contract that they bid.
Right,
Unless
but
we
they did
ask for,
a change order, right? Didn't they ask for a change order?
I am not sure if they asked for a change order. I need to check with my security manager on that, but they shouldn't be asked. I'm not sure why they would. The only time they can ask for a change order if they're asking for more we are asking for more personnel.
Right, that's what I understand. I understand that the hearing officer in the protest said that they have to live with their amount that they
Correct.
bid. But because they did not include when they bid, and this was brought up in the protest, they didn't include the negotiated amount with the union. And so these employees are not getting that money. And I understand that Ally's having a hard time getting personnel. They're short. So that's another thing. Can you report how many guards and personnel that should be at the airport that Ally don't have?
You ask really good questions. I'll get you a summary on everything that you've asked for so far.
Okay, because, at some point, you guys are accountable if you put out a bid that didn't specify some of these things in the bid, and then it goes to the lowest bid, but they don't cover some of these things, and then the employees are the ones that is going to be shortchanged.
And the traveling public.
Right, and the traveling public. Okay, also, I was told that on the CBA site, that the contractor is supposed to say what rate they're paying. And if they're not putting it down specifically, then it's assumed that they're supposed to pay the same rate as the previous contractor. So can you check on that, please?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Other questions I have is other airport vendors. What is airports doing to support and help the vendors? I know I was told that some major airports across the country are giving vendors relief by extending their contracts so they can become whole, because they've really taken a hit and some of them cannot survive. So are we supporting our vendors and helping them in any way?
Yes, I understand your question. We were one of the first in the nation back in April of 2020 to relieve the MAG. So all concessions are paying a percentage. We also gave a 2-year extension to most of the concessions. The key date is April 1st, 2020. Some of the concessions didn't get the full 2 years because if their lease was to end, say, on May 1st, 2020, they would just get a 1-month extension. They wouldn't get the full 2 years because of the fact that their lease timed out 1 month later, and the disruption to their business would have been only 1 month. There has been talks that from the concessions that they wanted a longer term, but again, with the guidance of my Attorney General and the contract provisions in these concession agreements, we had to abide by them.
Okay. Go ahead.
But Ross, what about the concessionaires that you changed from lease to revocable permit? Because now they're getting penalized because they don't actually have a lease, they have the RP instead. So
Good
now
question.
how do they access funds for assistance?
So that's a good question. So what my AG opined was that a lot of times they need to make back their capital improvement. So when you're on a revocable permit, normally there's hardly any capital improvement that is paid, because nobody's going to want to put in an improvement for just a 1 month or 1 year contract.
Yeah, but they're still basically they're still tenants, but because they don't have a lease and they have the RP, they're being treated differently on trying to get the same assistance someone who has a lease, but they previously had a lease.
Well, if they're on an RP, they're continued every month anyway, unless they want to leave. It's not like they have a timeout or their term is going to end 1 year from now. They're on a month-to-month contract.
No, I get that, but the RP, the concessionaires on RPs are being treated differently than those who have leases. They got the RPs because they didn't get an extension on the lease that you guys provided the RP. So if you can just look into making sure there's equity.
Sure.
Okay, and then to continue on, So can you use the Fed's money, the COVID money, to help some of the vendors or all of the vendors?
Say that again. I couldn't understand the beginning part.
Can COVID money or federal funding coming because of COVID be used to help with these vendors?
So the CRISA grant, we do have a portion of that that has to be used for our concessions.
Okay, and are they being used?
Yes, they will be used.
Okay, so can this extension go on since, you know, you expected it to go to what, April 2022, and the way things are going now, I don't believe that these vendors can recoup.
Right. So prior to this, you know, again, we didn't want to give too long of a time because you could get somebody else that wants to bid on a contract that would have terminated. So we are considering that. I am thinking about that because of the fact that the two variants came into play. So it's something that we would look into, is to extending or adding more years to that extension so that the vendors can make back their capital improvements that they put into the airport.
Yeah, we appreciate that because they're really suffering, and
Right.
you know, it's been over 2 years for them,
Right.
and it's like it's continuing on. And even though things light up in the next couple months, they're still behind. So
Right.
I hope you folks will look at that.
And I want to add that we've continued to go with percentage only, and we haven't instituted the MAG. We were thinking about that when traffic was somewhere near 85% return from 2019 pre-pandemic. The one business that is still suffering is duty free because we have hardly any international travelers coming into Hawaii.
Right, and we still don't have too many, so, okay, thank you for that. So now with the concession for the rental cars is completed, have the parking been restored? The public parking?
Yes, it's not restored yet, but we're getting there as far as restriping, returning it back to where it should be. I do have my engineer Guy. I'm not sure if we're almost there, if we can get an update, if we're going to open it up sooner than March or April.
Okay, because that's been long waited for. And in line with that, those people who are checking in for United and the ones at the far end, not only did they park far and have to go all the way to that, but then you only had, especially at night, and I'm not sure during the day, but you've had only the very far security entry point, the TSA entry point. So it's like from end to end of the airport, these people had to walk, including myself. And then if you're in gate G, then you got to go all the way back again. I mean, I got a lot of miles on my Fitbit, but that's not the point, you know.
Yes, I understand.
So why isn't the TSA in the middle? Why did they close up the middle and force you at the far end?
I'm not sure on when that occurred. For example, if there's a COVID case in say the central checkpoint, they're going to utilize 4 and 5 checkpoints, 4 and 5. So
no, but it's always closed. Every time I've gone to the airport, it's been
what time do you go?
Well, what?
Oh my goodness.
How many? Anybody of you seen the other ones open?
Most of the
It's
time,
always
checkpoint 3 should be, that's the central checkpoint. It should always be open most of the day.
Oh, no, it's not. Trust me, it's not.
Okay, well, I can look into that, but and find out exactly what times they open and close, but you might have been going on a later time during the.
Well, once I went my flight left at 8 in the morning, and then usually they gone at 6 in the evening, and then like 9 at night.
Okay.
My
I'll look into
colleagues here
checkpoint 3.
also. Yeah, so, and it's always, and I've had people complain to me as we're walking, all the passengers going on, and they always say, well, how come we gotta walk this far? How come this one not open? So, yeah.
Got it, makes sense.
Okay, I looked on your vacancy report, and I noticed that you have over 30 positions for visitor information specialist vacant. First of all, I didn't realize you folks had that many of those positions and you have that many vacant. Can you shed some light on these positions?
Is our personnel director on, Ray Domingo? Would you have any information on that? The only thing that I can think of is that we're having a hard time just obtaining employees. I really don't know why there's 30 employees that are vacant, but I know that we try to recruit on a timely basis. So I'm not sure exactly. Well, I'll check in with our VIP section on that.
Yeah, you got visitor information specialist 4, 1, assistant 1, assistant 1, assistant 2, assistant 3.
Those are like SR8s and SR10s. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it says, you know, expected to fill the ASAP, ASAP. In fact, almost every one of this is ASAP. Yet, you know that, I don't know that you're going to be able to fill all of these positions that you have vacant ASAP because everybody's having problems getting people to work, right?
Exactly. And it's the pay scale. It's the pay scale. As you know, we got 3 government agencies in Hawaii. We got the federal government, the city, and the state. And of the 3 agencies, the state gets paid the least. So we're going to always have a difficult time filling positions right now all over. Airlines, security services, everybody's struggling to have or to get employees to be working for them.
Yeah, you have so many janitor positions that is vacant. I don't know,
Yes,
cleaning the restrooms at this point.
very difficult to fill.
So is there looking at getting a contractor to do some of this work or?
No, we're looking into that, especially in Kona, because we can't find custodians to work there. So we're going to look at trying to get to outsource this, but we got to be careful with the union. We got to talk with them and make sure that they're okay with that.
Okay, so if you can get back to us on the visitor information programs and also the length of the current allied contract, when is it up?
It's supposed to be a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions. So last year, 2020, I guess it's 2023.
Okay. And then would you give notice if you plan to extend or not?
Well, it depends. Again, we're going to evaluate at the 3-year mark, but we can evaluate them right now. If they're not doing a good job, we would have to, you know, let them know that what they need to remedy.
Yeah, well, please evaluate because I'm getting a lot of complaints. Thank you.
This is Ray Domingo. I wanted to also add something with regard to the vacancies. We have been trying to fill the vacancies, but we have been challenged by requirements related to COVID. For example, selected applicants must be fully vaccinated to get the position. Also, since October, we have been impacted by a reduction in force from the Aloha Stadium. This froze the filling of several positions in the DOT. As with other departments, we have been working in cooperation with the Department of Human Resources, which is responsible for finding other work for the impacted employees at the Aloha Stadium. It is anticipated that reduction in force should be concluded shortly, I believe in October and next month in February.
Okay, but some of these vacancies have been for several years though. Because I see, you know, some are from 2018, 2019. Got one from got a couple from 2016.
Yeah. Ray, I don't want to, let's just follow up and find out why they've been vacant for so long.
And then in some areas you have 89-day contract. There's one here 10 times 89-day.
10 times?
Yeah.
Probably hard to fill position.
Table
Senator.
11, page
Which one is that?
22. You can see it says 11.
Page 22.
You look at number of
We'll look into that.
89-day appointments. See.
Oh, I see that, yeah,
Okay,
11 times.
because if you guys aren't gonna fill it, then you know our position.
And it's human resources too.
Got it.
So why is that position 89-day hire 11 times? Why not just hire somebody?
Ray, you got the answer for that?
No, I do not. I need to get back.
Okay.
Sure. Just one quick one. For the custodian position, what is the pay scale?
Janitor.
Ray, you know the pay scale?
About 3,100 a month.
And what that breaks down in hourly?
about 20 something dollars an hour.
Because, you know, I hear a lot of the departments coming over here, yeah, and saying, we cannot fill these positions. Well, I'll tell you right now, I was a custodian, was getting paid $18 an hour for the state. If I could get paid $23 an hour, I'll take that job. So that's what I just was wondering, because you're talking about you're gonna fill
Cannot
these
take that job.
positions. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's plenty of guys out there that I know would run to this job from Ever Beach to $23 an hour for clean one toilet. Let me tell you. So I just wondering why, because I was getting paid 18 at Ever Mackay, and that was full-time pay. You pay me 23, I'll run from Ever Beach to over there. So I just wanted to know, how are you guys seeing, you guys having a hard time? Not just you guys, Ross, but all the departments saying, oh, the pay scale not this, the pay scale not this. When I was working for the city as a refuse inspector, I got $2,100 a month. I was getting paid $12 or $15 an hour. And you know what? I never missed one day. So it's not the pay scale, it's just that the people don't like work. If they don't like work, well, you gotta figure this thing out. Because you guys get plenty of vacancies, not just you again, Ralph, and your guys' department, but all the departments. I hear after briefing, oh, the pay scale, the pay scale. Where do you think they stay? Beverly Hills?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So Ray, go ahead.
These
Not just
positions,
you guys, not just you guys, Ralph, so I'm not piping on you, brother.
but when we go through the DHERD website, most of these positions aren't even on the DHERD website. So I'm not sure if they're even out for recruitment. But if you have someone who's been 11 times 89-day hire and they're in HR, this list should be way shorter. Because you're outsourcing your HR 89-day hire to fill all of this, but I don't see any of this. This is such a long list.
I understand. And then, hey, Ray, just to let you know, yeah, so that pay rate for the custodian, if you said $3,100 a month, the per hour, Senator, is about $17.50, not
They
$23.
can understand that.
Yeah. I just
But do you have
calculated.
even die hires? I
No, it
wanted to
depends.
apply.
Because janitor 2 here, you have budgeted $44,292.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
not sure.
when you look at, if you look at your, I mean, this is the information you guys provided us.
Yeah, that would be $21 an hour. So I would have to check into that. Good question.
Thank you.
Okay, wait, Senator Inouye.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up, Ross, with regards to Donna's question about the TSA, it is on the entire day. So I just came home to Hilo on Wednesday again. So it doesn't matter what time of the day TSA is down at the new section. But I think I did share with you when they first started going to use the new section Mauka Concourse. It's a burden to many, particularly the seniors. It was really interesting. Another thing too is I think the coordination has to be done with Hawaiian Airlines as well. And I understand it's beyond your control. And that's what I was going to discuss with Chair Lee sometime next week to see what the division responsibility between your responsibility or the airport's TSA and the airlines itself. Interesting that inter-island cargo, check-in baggage is down on the Diamond Head side. So the neighbor islands for all of us, we have to go all the way down past the other section of Hawaiian Airlines into the Mauka Concourse. Check in at TSA, and then when you get out, you have to go all the way down back to inter-island gates, and usually the Hilo's departure is on the B level. So we're going completely around from Diamond Head side to Eva to Diamond Head for entry. So, but that's something that I think we should understand what's the responsibility between locations. And I understand Hawaiian Airlines agreed to moving TSA down the other end. It's a burdensome, but I also know though, and I think I made that complaint many times to you, if you look at the entry level where TSA used to be sometimes it's crazy when you have, and I understand, I think you brought that up to me several times. There's no space because they almost, the amount of people at the middle side extends out to the doorway. So I can see where there's really an issue there as well. And I understand, and it's interesting because there's more space down at the Mauka concourse. So it's just something that our airports wasn't designed for 21st century airports. But anyway, it's there, so.
I understand. I felt the same way when they started utilizing the Mauka checkpoint.
Yeah.
That again, all of the checkpoints here at the airport wasn't designed at all because it all morphed into being checkpoints because of the events of 9/11.
Yeah.
But the Senator Kim was alluding to checkpoint 3 because she utilizes United. So that's a little bit different than why that checkpoint was closed versus using checkpoint 4 or 5. So you're talking
And
about.
I don't go travel to the mainland that often, so, but anyway, it's a burdensome for the island guys. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
It's different.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ross. I want to follow up on a number of these things. You know, the reason earlier I was asking about some of the upgrades to security and baggage, you know, all that stuff, because for a long time, obviously, there's been a need for some of this. And, you know, it's our understanding, I think, as you had pointed out a number of times, that traditionally, a lot of the projects at the airport that are significant, of any significance, right, you got to have cooperation and approval from the airlines in spending those dollars on those projects. Is that right?
That's correct.
Is that true also for the federal dollars?
Well, any project, it doesn't really matter the color of the money, whether it's federal monies or bond monies or state or airport monies. It still needs to go through the process of getting the approval and an agreement from the airlines committee.
And I raise that because we understand, you know, when airlines in some sense are paying some of the fees, well, really it's the passengers paying the fees, but it's going through the airlines, that they ought to have a seat at the table there. But when it's federal money coming in that airlines have nothing to do with, that airlines still have veto power over projects that might be in taxpayer or public's interest, when sometimes those airlines have a diametrically opposed financial interest in whatever, seems inappropriate.
Well, it's just, yeah, I've been doing this for quite some time, so that's how it works. You still got to get the concurrence. I understand what you're saying, that it's not their money, it's the federal government's money that's being infused through a grant, but it still boils down to airlines rates and charges. So however you use the grants will dictate the rates and charges that gets imposed on the airlines.
Yeah, so we
because
can
of the residual system.
We can have a broader discussion, separate policy discussion later about that agreement and, you know, how we move forward. But for the moment, where I think some of the concerns Senator Kim raised and Senator Inouye just now about the way that our airport functions from a user perspective. I mean, even walking from the garage over to the terminal across those beautiful new bridges you guys just put in, they dead end right at an elevator where if you have more than 2 people with bags, you're just sitting there waiting, and it's not even apparent where you're supposed to be going. And then once you get down to check-in, you know, we have all those problems in the lobby, and then to get to security, if you can find which one you're supposed to be going to, you know, they weren't, I think to your point, fundamentally built to handle modern equipment and all those lines and check and all that stuff. And then coming out of the airport, you got the baggage claims, which are kind of like 1960s caves with equipment that sounds like they were still installed in the 1960s.
The clunking noise, yeah.
Yeah, so all of that stuff, you know, we have the federal dollars that are coming in now, which we've probably got a once in a generation opportunity to use, which theoretically should be more flexible to use to address some of this stuff, because for all this time, while it's great that you guys are upgrading bathrooms and you know, the other stuff along the way, it really is kind of lipstick on a pig, because functionally the layout, the design, the structure of the thing it's not conducive to travel, and it's not conducive to modern public flow. So wouldn't you think it'd be somewhat appropriate to consider using some of that federal money to reconfigure some of these structural elements that for a long time we've been unable to touch?
You know what, I will reach out to the airlines committee to let them know what you just said today. And again, I take into consideration everyone's input as to what we should be doing as far as prioritized projects here at the airport. Our district managers might say we should have this, you may say that. So being a deputy, I need to make some decisions on what should be a higher priority and work with the airlines.
I appreciate that. No, I understand the position that you're in. And it's clear that, we, from our perspective, are trying to support what the public needs, what everybody else that uses the airport needs. And, we subsidize the airlines too, right? We have tax credits and all kinds of stuff that they're recipients of, and we hope that they're willing partners. So in this conversation, I'm happy to, I think, have some of the concerns our colleagues raised be brought up and see what we can do this year. Because if we miss this opportunity, we miss the opportunity and we're back to square one, where it's in the airline's interest generally. I'm not trying to malign anybody here, but it's in their interest to have projects done that benefit them at their particular gate or their particular area or whatever. And so these common elements have never got the kind of attention that they really desperately need, that makes our airport functionally one of the most difficult in the country. So I'd love to follow up on that.
Yeah, and we do have a quarterly and annual meeting with the airlines committee. So I'll try and see if you could be invited to that as well, just to, give your point of view as well.
Can I just piggyback to say, now is the time to do it because you don't have that many people at the airport. So you don't have to, the construction is not going to necessarily hamper.
Congest.
Because once we get back up to, thousands and thousands of visitors a day, it's going to be even harder. So got to take advantage of this opportunity to make some of these changes. So yes, thank you.
And then I did ask our team to do some improvements to anything that dealt with the international traveler because of the fact that there's very few travelers coming through.
So Ross, what's your guys' plan for the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act money that you're going to be receiving?
Yes, so like I was working with Senator Lee, our team has decided that in the best interest of the airport, we were going to apply that money to taxiways and runways. Again, we could use some of the monies that we just went on an investor call today. We're going to be issuing about $300 million in airport bonds. So
Okay,
either color of money can be used for that type of, that's how we're going to use it. But we could use it for like what Senator Lee has been asking for, like replacing all of the baggage carousels and things like that seem to be clunky and old.
Okay, but you should have a plan by now.
That is the plan.
Okay, can you submit it in writing to the committee? Because you guys are going to get funding for 5 years. And this first year, you're going to get 50 million.
It's going to be an average of about 49 and change for the next 5 years. We'll give you that plan on how we plan to spend the money.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that? Ross, can we intervene and change that plan? Because fundamentally, I appreciate what you're trying to do with the carousels and other stuff, but it still doesn't solve all the fundamental basic structural issues that make the thing a terrible experience for the public.
I'll work with you closely to intervene and try to use that money differently if possible.
Well, we got to see it first so we can look at it and review it.
You got it.
We're going to fund the taxiways and runways and that stuff. We have to, right? And the airlines have to come to the table and because they use it. But
yes,
this stuff, it's been like 40 years that it's needed to change. And here we are. And this is the only opportunity we have maybe in a generation to do it.
Makes sense.
I appreciate that.
I mean, you might want to, what are big projects that we got to do for 250 million bucks over 5 years? I mean, you got to have a spending plan going.
I can tell you the largest project that we're probably going to have to spend money on, and that is in runway 220 in Maui. We need to rectify that. That's an old runway that has issues with the infrastructure. Subgrade material appears to be failing at this time, so we're going to have to do a restructuring on that entire runway.
Okay, well, we'll just wait to see if you can just submit that in writing.
Sure.
We want to see the spending. We want to see the spending plan for the full 5 years.
Easy.
So just as a quick follow-up, Ross, does all your airports have Wi-Fi?
Yes.
Well, Molokai no more, and Molokai no. Who's your guys' contractor? Can they put the Wi-Fi in there with, we get a lot of guys coming in, and then we get the delay of flights. And every time, all I get is complaints, says, hey, no more Wi-Fi over here. So can you guys like try to put in the Wi-Fi, please?
That should be easy.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you, Chair.
Senator Favela.
Well, with the money that we're talking about that we're getting, I just, I didn't see any, but can you let me know, if you guys gonna use any of that money in improving Kalailo Airport or Campbell Industrial or whatever they call them now, Kapolei, harbors, because, that'd be a good time to start spending that money over there too. Yeah, you get 5 years, so I don't know how much money it would be to do the upgrades, so we can have inter-island flights up there in Kalailo Airport. So the guys on the west side doesn't have to travel all the way into town to catch the inter-island flights. So is that somewhere you guys plan to use some of that money for Kalailo Airport?
Well, just to let you know, on the infrastructure grant, I believe the allocation for the general aviation, the smaller airports was just $110,000 a year, 110. So we have to use it for that. Again, we're waiting for further determination as for the allocation. I did ask the FAA if we could combine the total allocation across the board for all 15 airports into one to give us flexibility. But at this time, it appears that they're moving towards, based on employments, based on the size of the airport. We already have an allocation plan because we're one of very few airports that got 15 airports in an airport system. A lot of airports are just one airport. But it's 110 allocated to that Kalailo Airport. I believe, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for airport? It sounds like he has lots of documents he has to gather for us.
I know, my whole notebook is full already.
We'll give you another notebook.
I enjoy the questions. Those are good questions. And I know that you guys are here to make us better. And we work together with you guys as a team. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, harbors? Anybody have questions for harbors?
Highways.
Oh, just one.
Yeah, I just have one too. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. For harbors, thank you very much. Yeah, I know there's been some projects down at Honolulu Harbor in particular that some of our colleagues in the public has been interested in, especially in the Aloha Tower area. There's been opportunities for a little bit of redevelopment, that sort of thing. It's my understanding that harbors cannot negotiate leases with anyone for non-maritime purposes on harbor's land. Is that right?
That's correct. This is Ed Manglalan. I'm the new deputy director, Senator.
Thank you. So as far as helping to facilitate some of those projects and other future stuff, would it be helpful to expand the authority statutorily so that harbors can negotiate some of those things and get some of these projects rolling a bit faster?
That's correct. We are starting the dialogue with all the private entities interested to develop, especially the Aloha Tower marketplace area and Irwin Park and the waterfront. That's not included with the ATDC.
And that's something that harbors would support if we were to do that this year?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
So same question for harbors on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. If you can send over your 5-year spending plan.
Will do.
And again, can you add in Campbell Industrial Area harbors too?
Jay, what is that?
Chair, there were no infrastructure money for harbors.
Oh, none for
There's some
harbors.
discretionary grants that we can compete for.
Okay. Senator DeQuay.
You know, on harbors, what is your guys' security measures upon entry? Because I think you guys go DLNR harbors there, and then you guys also have harbor security on the DOT.
Yeah. Correct. We have harbor police, and we have DLNR. If it's away from the land side, then it's within DLNR jurisdiction. If it's within our piers, that's DOT harbor.
So tell me why when you enter into the harbors that you have to have a certification to come in and drop freight off for those that have been dropping freight off the companies, and then you get a complete stranger that drives right in, you put the cone on them and they go, if we're talking about security. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
Can I ask you what location you're talking about?
I'm talking about your Honolulu harbors as well as the one on Molokai. And then the response is, a complete stranger just gets off the airplane, comes down to pick up their freight. You put a cone on the roof, and then your everyday Makua Trucking, Larry Jeffs, and all these guys coming in, they gotta be MARSEC certified. They pay the extra money and TWIC certified. Why is that?
Okay, so the TWIC certification is actually a Coast Guard requirement. And if you, I assume you're talking about Young Brothers in their location. So like with Young Brothers, they have a separate security plan from the harbors. So they can control what is within their area, in their chain fenced area. So it's a different, their requirements may not necessarily match what our requirements are. So they can write into their system who needs to be ID and what kind of ID they need to have.
Yeah, but I think we're talking about security level. You guys are responsible for the harbors, yet you guys basically lease that harbor out to Young Brothers. So why, if we're talking about security, you're letting a complete stranger in the harbor when you get the customer that is coming in and out of the harbor every day? I mean, I get the point, you guys gotta make money, but that don't make sense. And at the same time, you telling the person that has been MARSEC or TWIC certified, if you see something that is not appropriate, to then do the job for the guys that's supposed to be doing the job. And then the complete stranger with the guy to get the certification say, hey, you know, the guy looks kind of strange. First time I see him on the harbor. Like something's wrong with that picture.
I think we're mixing some stuff up here. First, I understand what you're saying as far as needing the MARSEC. So if you're driving on and you're delivering product to the harbor, and especially if you're going into, whether it be Matson, Dacia, or Young Brothers, you need to have the TWIC card and the MARSEC certification to be able to drop off product in the harbor or in their facility.
Yeah, but wait, okay, but the same stranger that doesn't live there, you guys allowing them to still come into that harbor and drop something off. So, you know, that what I'm saying is that doesn't make sense. And furthermore, on those neighbor islands, there's no facility that does the certification. So these guys are having to fly here to get the training, paying the extra airfare, and then coming back to pick that card up. What's the deal with that? You know, that doesn't make any sense. If that's the case, those guys that you guys putting a cone on should hire a freight forwarder if the security measure is what we're talking about, because I think that's an unfair practice. And if it's security, whether it be harbors or airport. So I just like figure out how you guys, you know, how do you justify that at that point? But I know we're running out of time and I needed to say that. And maybe we can have one sidebar conversation, but thank you, Chair.
I can reach back to you because I think we're mixing up a little bit of apples and oranges.
No, we're not mixing up apples and oranges. We're mixing up the fact that security is security and that you folks are going about this the wrong way. And that if you want the security, then you go up to Molokai and you do the security training and certification there. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions for harbors?
I have one.
Oh, Senator Kidani.
Thank you, Chair. My question is whether or not you guys intend to do a study of Kawailoa Harbor to see if it can be used for the west side receiving goods.
Yeah, we have included that in our recent master plan, Senator. So yeah, we are considering Kawailoa development in the future. And there are a lot of changes in there, moving parts, and we are evaluating what options do we have, especially now with AES going out of business. So the coal industry, those coal piers will need to be adjusted. And we have in our CIP master plan.
So what's the timeline?
Neil?
From what the coal ships will stop coming sometime this year. I think it's September. And so after they remove the coal ship, the belts and everything, is when we're going to be able to identify what kind of condition the piers are in, and we can move from there. So the master plan basically has it for, I want to say 2030, and then we can we review what kind of needs we have for that particular harbor.
Yeah, I think all of you guys and some of us will be retired by then. I've been asking for this for 3 years and I'm still not satisfied with the answer. So I think you guys need to shake a leg and move quicker. As you guys know, the last 50 years, development has been on the west side of Oahu. And if you're living on the west side, you can see all the truck traffic every morning, every afternoon, all day long, going to the west side to deliver goods when it could be brought in by barge or ship, whatever. So I'm asking you guys to do your best to do the study as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we'll do, Jennifer.
Okay, let's move on to highways. Questions for highways?
I have a question, Chair, on harbors.
Oh, harbors, okay. Senator
Okay.
Inouye?
Sure. Going back to the plan that you folks were working on post, I guess, the closing of the coal plant. And in our last visit last year, also we were briefed that part of the use of the area also is asked of, and I think they have an opportunity, Hawai'i Gas Company. Is that into consideration of part of their modernization for their incoming, I guess, fuel for a larger parcel of land? And I was wondering if gas company has continued to request for additional space, because I think it's right next door to, I think it was the earlier advanced or the egress of the harbor.
Yes.
So Hawaii Gas actually is at Pier 1 in Kalaeloa, and the coal ship would park at Pier 6.
Pier 6, oh, okay.
So it's really kind of a different area.
Oh, okay.
And Hawaii Gas, we're trying to work with them. They have different ideas and different concepts of what they want to propose. And so we've been discussing with them how that would work into our master plan with everything else.
Okay, does that also include the shipyard?
Hawaii Gas would be right on the side of the Morisco shipyard.
Right.
It may impact them, it may not, depending on what they actually end up planning out.
Okay, okay. So actually your planning designs probably will be amended then going forward, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank
Okay,
you, Chair.
if we can just, if the harbors can just quickly go around your room and just identify who everybody is.
Hey, I'm Eduardo Manglalan, the Deputy Director. Rex Akutagawa is our ASO. Neil is our Administrator. And Alisa Pascual is our Budget Analyst. And we have a new
Fiscal Officer, Nigel. Nigel Young.
And ATDC product project strategy.
Okay, any last questions before harvest? Okay, thank you. Okay, for highways. Senator Kim.
I have a quick question. So it's and I want to thank you for participating and helping us with the procurement from last year and procurement committee, special committee that we had. But it was brought to my attention that since the bill has passed, that DOT didn't follow the dates. And so you had a protest that came about on August 13th from road and highway builders. On August 18th, you asked for a comment to the protest. That comment was given to you on August 27th. 75 days from August 13th was November 6th. There was no decision by November 6th. And then on December 21, which is the 120 days, which you didn't give a notice that there were extenuating circumstances. And finally, on December 28th, DOT canceled the bid. So can you explain why? I mean,
Absolutely. So first of all my fault. This is my fault. And appreciate you putting this bill in because it helps us tremendously and move things forward quickly. So this project, the apparent low bidder came in at 12 million below number 2 and number 3. But that apparently low bidder, when we saw the bid, we had concerns because there were several forms that were not filled out correctly and not completely filled out. So we already had concerns whether they were responsible or responsive. The number 3 bidder submitted a protest, the one that you had talked about, to say that the number 1 was non-responsive and number 2 should be considered non-responsible based on their reads of the bids. Our staff was going through the process of considering the first or the apparent low to see if they were responsive or responsible. When they determined that that low bidder was non-responsive, they started working on the second low bidder to see how they could work through those issues. While they were going through that process, I looked at the numbers and I let them know the low bidder is already outside of our price range. Number 2 and number 3 are 10 to 12 million over that price range. So let them know from my perspective, we don't have the funding that's available to fund that project in totality. Considering a couple of things, that the priority of that project was not as high as others along the system, other needs on the system. And that if we broke up that project into different delivery options, we could deliver that project cheaper in different ways. So when we started working with the AG decided or had determined that if we're looking at canceling the bid, we should not respond to the protests to mislead the bidders. Now, my fault on all of this is making sure that we followed. I didn't make sure we followed all the timeframes to make sure that at 75 days, we requested extension from the developer, from the director, and that we made sure that we updated the protesters at the 120-day mark. That's all my fault. I've asked since then, our contracts office is tracking all of our protests and ensuring that they update all of the deputies during those timeframes of the timeframe of the protest, when we need to respond by, or when we need to take action to ensure that we follow it all. So those are all in place now, and that was all my fault.
yeah, I appreciate that because you were the one that helped us on setting up the number of days and said it was doable. And, you know, the fact that if you determined that you didn't have the money, I don't know why it would take 120 plus days to determine that you needed to withdraw the bid or cancel the bid, because, you know, these people spend a lot of money answering the bids, putting in this, and then a lot of money waiting to find out what's going on. And then I don't know why it would take that long. So when you say non-responsive, what does that mean, non-responsive?
So non-responsive means that they didn't follow all the requirements of the bid submittals. When you, there's 2 terms that we got to follow. One is non-responsive, the other is non-responsive, or not responsible. Non-responsive means that there were bid requirements that weren't fulfilled.
Okay, so when you ask for response and they give it to you, that doesn't mean non-responsive.
No.
That just means they didn't put in. But do you go back to them and see if they can submit it?
Yes, we always check in. So there's requirements.
Because you guys didn't check in accordingly. Nobody said anything after the first response went in on August 25th. There was nothing to try to resolve it until you canceled the bid on December 28th.
We follow up with the low bidder that we're trying to work on responsiveness for. There are things that we can ask them for after the bid, but there's other things that law requires must be part of the bid package itself.
Right. Okay, I don't want to go into the details, but I just want to make sure that, we had this whole thing on this process, that we're following it and that we're doing everything we can to minimize and, the loss of time, loss of money, and loss to the taxpayers. Because if this bid was low priority and you didn't have the money for it, then I don't know why we went through this whole bidding thing, right? Because it takes you months to put a bid out, right?
That's the thing. I didn't say it was low priority. What I said was the priority for this project was not as high as other needs on the system.
That is high, right?
Exactly. So the other, if the bids fell within the budget, we would have went forward with the project. But because we needed another 10 million on top of that, we didn't have that 10 million, given the resources that we have and the priorities that we have in the system.
But it took you 120 days to determine that, which to me doesn't make any sense.
So the 120 days was looking at the responsiveness and responsibility of the bids first. That was
Right, but if you don't want the money, you don't want the money, even though they're responsive.
Again, that was because I never made that determination. I didn't look at their numbers until later. They were working through the process of responsibility and responsiveness first, without me looking at the numbers for the bid.
Well, but I thought low bid is low bid. You got to look at the number.
So the low bid.
Okay, that's okay. You can give it to us in writing. Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Senator Moriwaki.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Kim, just to bring that up. But and just to follow up on that, is there anything, because we thought we corrected the process last year when we changed the law, but if there is anything that would help in terms of this kind of feedback that's, on the front end rather than the back end, if you can also provide that information, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and this one, there's nothing to fix except internally for us to make sure that there's alerts that are available, so that this follows the process according to the law.
If you're done on that, I just wanted you to clarify too what you're doing on broadband, because it doesn't seem like it's in the highway arena. And if you're using federal funds, where does federal highways fit in that? And if you can just clarify that for us.
Of course. We're working on a broadband project, a pilot in 8 communities, and it's going a lot slower than we'd wanted, mainly because of the supply chain issues we're getting because of COVID. The costs are increasing on things, and the availability of materials is going down quite a bit. But with that, we're still moving forward in Kalihi, and we just lit up a portion of the communities that we're trying to connect in that area. So the intent of the pilot was to look at 8 communities that were underserved or unserved to ensure that we can connect broadband and provide free broadband service for 3 years. In that 3-year time frame, the government, DOT, will be paying for the services that are provided by the service provider in those 8 communities. After that time frame, we would need to request additional funds or look at another funding source to provide that free service. Now, that being said, even if we don't get additional funding to extend the free service, we would still have infrastructure that was built into those communities to ensure that those community members can now pay for broadband or purchase broadband service without having to pay for the bill that's necessary to come in. So those are twofold infrastructure improvements that we're trying to get to connect these communities.
And so who's paying that? Is that federal highways or what funds, ARPA funds or what?
We use the CRESA funds for this project. The discussions with federal highways was our mission is to provide access to goods and services and opportunities for our community members. And in the past, we've always considered that access as physical, walking, biking, driving, or riding transit. But we argued that during this COVID time, more of our community members are looking at virtual ways to access, learning from home, working from home, getting their medical access from home. And they agreed with us. So when we started looking at using these types of funds in our highways program, they're fully supportive. So we're looking at that virtual access or virtual highway in as many areas as we can get to.
So how much are you getting for that over what amount of time?
So this was a discussion with federal highways or during with the Congress during the discussion on IIJA. There was a determination during that period of where additional broadband funds would go, whether it be into DOT or whether it would be going to other departments. The determination at the end was it would go to other departments, but they're opening up the accessibility of the funds from DOT to be used for broadband purposes. So on our projects, on a day-to-day type of situation, when we start excavating for a roadway reconstruction, anytime we do that, we'll start putting in conduits to ensure that in the future, should we want broadband through a different community, there's already access to conduits there. A provider wouldn't have to worry about ripping up the road, putting in the cost for those conduits and going through. We already changed up our permitting processes to ensure that when broadband providers are asking for access to our facilities, the answer is yes. And then we start determining how best to support them as they come through, because that connectivity is going to help everybody. In the past, we used to be protective of the right of way, whereas in reality, I mean, this is the biggest thing that we can do for our communities.
So it's not funding coming to DOT for infrastructure. It's as you develop your highways, then you put in the infrastructure.
Exactly. But there are some availabilities for funding that we could potentially use for broadband purposes. We're trying to find out from federal government what those guidelines are. And once we get them, we'll send it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Lee.
Thanks. Thanks, Ed. I had just a couple questions following up kind of on some of the stuff we talked about in the briefing last week. When you talk about some of the projects that DOT has been advancing or highways has been advancing, I mean, I think, I think as we were aware from the last time, there's been some frustration from some of our colleagues in their communities that the projects are moving, but not really sure where they're going. And then decisions are made because of, funding constraints or technical or what have you. How can DOT in particular, when projects are in the pipeline, better connect with legislators? And is there a way we can formally keep some sort of awareness or transparency in what stage the projects are in and how decisions are going to be made, or better yet, even incorporate some of that feedback from those communities and legislators before it gets to a point where, it's 90% done and kind of ready to go?
Absolutely. So in most of the projects that we do, we have, and you've been a part of them, upfront meetings with the community and to give them the boundaries of what we can and cannot fund based on the programs that we're using the fundings from. We move forward with those decisions as much as possible in the field when we may find circumstances that limit us in certain ways. And we try to make those decisions, but report it to the community as quickly as possible. If we're not getting that information out there, definitely let us know so we can start putting out more information to the public. On all of our projects, we have our website that tracks all the statuses of the projects monthly. So every month, there's an update of our projects so that everybody understands the status. What we don't have out there, though, is the public input timeframes and processes. So we can definitely update it based on that. Then we can start tying into the area legislators to make sure that we can get more information out to you timely so that we can get more input from the public. I will say that we try to accommodate as much as we can from the public, but we're not always able to do so. But we'll definitely answer the public if we cannot.
Yeah, I think some of those concerns, especially about some of the bigger decisions, like whether projects are in motion or money got diverted for whatever other crisis or purpose, that kind of stuff seems to be super helpful to know, as those decisions are being made. I think a lot of folks would appreciate that. Secondly, the other thing I wanted to touch on, there has been several years of reporting through the Act 100 report and other places. Not all our federal funds have been used, and some got sent back or lapsed or what have you at various times. And I think this year it's been, or this past year I should say, it's been remarkably better and going in the right direction. With where the IIJ funds are now and the 5-year time horizon for potential grant funding opportunities, how are you guys handling the capacity to be able to apply for those grants, draw them down, make sure the funding goes out without a hitch, since it's kind of use it or lose it in this one-time opportunity?
So it's not. No, so let me clarify. I don't know of any federal funds that you're talking about that we send back. What programs are you talking about?
According to the Act 100 report, there's TAP funds and others, not this past year, but in the last few years before that, and it was reported by Civil Beat. And we had discussions here, I think, at the time. How do we maximize those funds and not kind of repeat that kind of thing, and make sure that, especially now this opportunity, we take advantage?
So TAP funds are totally different from this IIJ opportunity. So let me talk about the TAP funds first. TAP programs are not available to the state. We cannot use the funds. We have to put them out to nonprofits and others that in the community use it, and the counties. What we did wrong in the past was we used to fund planning and design of projects with TAP funds with a commitment towards construction. When those community members or the counties couldn't deliver on it, at the last minute, and they told us at the last minute, those funds lapsed. So that was the difficulty that we had before. So we changed our process to ensure that we only allot TAP funds for construction. Now that limits a lot of things that the community can do though now, because now that if they got to be construction ready, where does the money come from for the design and planning piece? But that was the adjustment that was necessary to ensure that the funding could actually be spent. So we started spending the money on infrastructure instead. We spent it on bikes. We spent it on ensuring, or the bikes facilities, to ensure that we get something out there to the community. But that's what we had to do to adjust the program. Now, if the program could be used by the state, we would have no problem. Because if you look at the state program, there is no money we send back to federal highways through our programs. Now, when you look at IIJA, the IIJA program is 90% put into our formula programs to all the 7 programs we already run. They add 3 more line items to it to ensure that there's 3 programs that are additionally funded on top of the 7. I don't have any problems with spending money or obligating the funds to expend the money, because we've never returned them to the public or to federal highways before, and we don't intend to. So we already have our 4+2 year step that we're already following. We have 300 million in projects that we already developed over and above this next year's obligations to ensure that not only do we spend this money, but we're ready to spend next year's money if necessary. We're also ready to take any discretionary funds that come from federal highways, whether it be August redistribution or grant funds that come through for any of these projects. So I don't see any reason that we would consider sending any money back to the federal government for these programs.
Yeah, to be clear, they're 2 separate things. I think what I was referring to is the fact that we've been in that place where we haven't maximized the opportunity we have. When it comes to the grant funding, what I was referring to is all the potential grant applications that we should be writing, that we should be drawing down funds for from all the multiple buckets of funding available to us, which, we're going to be competing with other states for, and it's going to be pretty competitive, it sounds like. So how do we ensure the department has the capacity, and you guys have the capacity to maximize that and write all those grants through all those different buckets of funding and bring that stuff down and execute?
So we've been applying for these grants over the past several years, and we've been preparing for this grant opportunity for the past several years. We streamlined all of our processes to ensure that our obligations and our expenditures were in line with what federal highways looks at. In 2016 or 2015, when we first came in, we were at about 800 million on the backlog. Then we brought it down to 400 million. This year, we plussed it up to about 475 because we got more money from the federal government, which is a good thing. But by the end of this year, we'll be at 380 million again. That's the best way to show the federal government that we're ready for the money. The second way to do it is, of course, to show the need. Keep letting them know what the need is. So anytime there's a grant application that comes through or a NOFO that comes through, we apply for at least 4 projects on the state side. And we support the counties on providing their grant applications as well. We actually fund a grant writer at UH that the counties can use as well to make sure that we can maximize the number of grant applications that we put out to the federal highways or USDOT. So that was the biggest things for us, to make sure that federal highways understood we had the capacity, we had the need, and we could expend the funds very quickly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get at. The UH position, how is that set up, and is that temporary in nature? What does that look like?
So we funded them. What we've done is to make sure that we have a strong relationship with UH. We funded them in their program, a grant writer and an administrator of all the programs that we run with them. We have several studies that are ongoing with UH. We have other grant opportunities that we're applying for. I think there's a Center of Excellence that we're looking for transportation, which is funded as part of IIJA. They're going to pick 12 throughout the nation. So we're going to be applying to be one of them. So that grant writer position is a permanent one that we funded through UH. There's 2 other positions that we're working on with them, so we can run our training program, our local training program, LTAP, through UH as well.
And UH is, sorry, to be clear, UH is picking up the tab permanently for?
Yeah, no, we pay them. So we have an arrangement with them so that we pay for those positions.
Oh, sorry, you guys are paying for the UH position?
That's correct, through our federal programs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions for highways? Any for administration? Okay, if not, thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Run.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.